Dr. McFadden, you can go now.
Oh, okay, thanks. Good evening. I'm Dr. Anna McFadder. I will be your moderator this evening, but I currently serve as professor and founding dean of the School of Social Work at Morgan State University in the beautiful city of Baltimore, Maryland. Thanks everyone for joining the Candidates Forum this evening. This is a great opportunity for you to meet social work practitioners, educators, students, and leaders from across the country. Some of the people you will meet and hear about this evening will eventually end up as NASW's board of directors with the awesome responsibility of charting the future direction of the National Association of Social Workers. So pay attention, listen well, and be prepared for voting, which will occur on May 2nd. So let's get started. We have a very short period of time, and so we want to really stick to the timeline. I know that's a little challenging for us social workers, but we do need to stick to the time frame. I will start by introducing Lee E. King. Lee currently serves as the Chief Executive Officer of NAVA Behavioral Health. He received his BA in an individualized studies with a minor in business and counseling from New Mexico State University. He obtained his master's in social work with honors from Western New Mexico University and earned a graduate minor in women's studies. He also completed doctoral work at Walden University. Lee indicates that he is committed to serving as a member at large of the NASW Board of Directors. He's been instrumental in developing systems of care for underserved populations in New Mexico for over 20 years. Throughout his career, he has administered therapeutic services to neglected groups and reached into rural communities to ensure that they were not overlooked. Okay. And next we will have Dr. Mavis Major, who will introduce herself and give a few comments about why she's interested in serving in this role.
Thank you, Dr. McFadden. Again, my name is Dr. Mavis Major. I am a licensed clinical social worker and have been for over 30 years. I am currently finishing a term as NASW board member for Nevada, and I am interested in expanding my work with NASW on the national level. I have worked as a social work practitioner as well as an academician throughout my career. I am passionate about social work, and I'm excited for the opportunity to participate in furthering the good work that NASW is already doing on behalf of social workers in general, as well as just the community at large and the issues that we bring to the forefront to better our country. So I'm looking forward to this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next person I'm really excited to introduce our BSW student members because NASW recognizes how critical it is for our students to have a voice. They're the future social workers, and they really should be at the table as we discuss these really important issues. So this is Ms. Hannah Kiswani.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hannah Kiswani, and I'm currently a BSW student at Seton Hall University in New Jersey. I'm very passionate about social work and advocating for marginalized communities, and I'm currently interning at Newark Community Solutions, and I've had the privilege of working with marginalized communities and helping them and ensuring that they know that there are resources out there to help them. I am currently on a track to pursue my JD after my BSW, and I want to integrate what I learned with social work with law and serve the population either through family law or nonprofit work and pro bono services. I feel like it's important for BSW students to have that representation, and I am here for them to support, to advocate, and ensure that their voices are being heard and that they see the NASW as a crucial part to their professional development as future social workers.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very, very much. Now, I want to stop for a moment to ask the people that have been introduced a question, and you have about a minute to respond to it. And here's the question. What do you think are the biggest and the most important challenges facing the social work profession? And how would you get involved in addressing those issues? And I'm going to start with a BSW student.
You're muted.
You're muted.
Sorry. I feel like the biggest challenges for the social work profession now would be the lack of resources for students, and especially for first generation college students. I am a first generation college student, and my experience has been amazing. And I want to ensure that other students have the same experience and that they see that there are people out there representing for them, advocating for them, ensuring that their voices are being heard. To me, that's really important. And I feel like that's really important. And to have that representation would really go a long way in professionally growing as a student social worker.
Okay. Thank you very much. Dr. Major, same question.
Thank you. I think one of the biggest challenges nationally and actually worldwide is the issue of equity, whether it's equity in terms of economics, whether it's racial equity, whether it's social equity, whether it's equity in terms of access to resources, whether it's reproductive rights. There's lots of issues that social workers have been on the forefront and advocating for. And I think that in one word, it is equity.
Okay. Thank you very much. I now want to introduce the other BSW student who couldn't be with us this evening. Her name is Emily Dykeman. Emily works for Partners for Serving, High Flex, and tutoring resources at Nazareth College, where she is currently a BSW student. At Partners for Serving, she works in the Rochester community, tutoring children and getting them prepared for a 5K run at Monroe Millers. She is a techie as well. She serves as a technology assistant for the professors in the master's program of social work. She indicates in a platform statement that as a BSW student at Nazareth College, she has a deep interest in the representation of future social workers in NASW. And just as I mentioned earlier, she indicates students play an important role in the future of the profession because they come in with new perspectives and experiences. The current student members are living in the middle of a major social justice movements. Some even experience advocating for those social justice platforms. And that's Miss Emily Dykeman. Next, I'm happy to introduce Mr. Bizrat Ababi, who will introduce himself and say a few things about why he's interested in serving on the board in Region 1 as a director.
Hi, thank you for having me again. It's truly a privilege and honor to be here announcing my candidacy. I have been a social work clinician, supervisor, and leader for almost over 18 years as an immigrant to the United States, and I'm proud to be part of the NSW and the community of social work professionals who positively impact people's lives across this country and all over the world. I've spent my career providing high quality care for incarcerated men and women, young adults, and individuals with mental illness and substance use disorders. I view my role as part of the important work for racial justice in this country, and I approach my work from an intersectional lens, striving to understand how clients' identities are influenced by their experiences, social structures, and relationships. I'm also a strong advocate for recruiting and retraining diverse social workers who are passionate about working with marginalized populations. 2 years ago, I was appointed to the NASW Board of Directors as Director for Region 1 to finish an open term. During this time, I have been an active member of the NASW Finance and International Committee, as well as our Foundation's Governance Committee. Through my participation, I have had the privilege of contributing my voice and unique perspective on a variety of decisions related to the governance of our association. So today, I am humbly asking for your support in my bid for election to this important position. If elected, I will continue to leverage the relationships I've cultivated and the knowledge I've gained over the past 2 years to represent the current needs of our profession, particularly in New England. I will actively listen to and respect the perspectives of others while challenging our association to be more responsive to members' ground level needs, such as better pay and more student loan forgiveness. Our association must work harder and faster in addressing systemic barriers for license portability. I am committed to creating a more equitable and just world for our all clients and our members. I will carry out the duties of the position and ensure transparency and timely communication between the national office, chapters, and all our members. Thank you for your consideration, and I look forward to serving as your representative on the NASW Board of Directors.
Well, thank you, Mr. Baby. I'm going to hold your question until I introduce the other candidate for Region 1 Director, Deborah Lasansky Beck. Ms. Beck is a licensed MSW who received her BA in psychology from Smith College and an MSW from Simmons University. She retired in 2017 as chair of the BSW program at Wheelock College. She previously taught at Simmons and worked for several years in perinatal mental health, child guidance, and parent education. Her current clinical work and writing focuses on stress reduction and mindfulness-based self-care. As an active member of the NASW Massachusetts chapter, Ms. Beck serves as a delegate to the NASW Delegate Assembly and as a member of the Legislative Advocacy Political Action for Candidacy Election, otherwise known as PACE. She indicates in a platform statement that as a long-term clinician, educator, and member of NASW, she's worked with enthusiasm and commitment to raise public awareness of and the appreciation for the social work profession, to provide optimal student-centered education and training for the next generation of social workers, and to promote legislation and policies that increase human rights and social justice on the local, state, and federal levels, particularly for underserved and exploited communities and individuals. She indicates that she's deeply committed to combating toxic discrimination in all areas of society, to eliminating systemic inequities, and to providing ongoing support to social workers. And since she couldn't be here, I'm going to move on to hear from Region 2's Director, Yvette Tyndale, at which point I will lobby my questions to Mr. Ababy and Ms. Tyndale. Is she not here yet? Okay. Then I'm going to move on to Region 2. I'm not sure yet whether we are taking a break or is something going. Can you guys hear me okay? So Greg and Aaliyah, where are we?
Dr. McFatter?
Yes.
It looks like that we do have enough time. If you would like to ask more questions, you can, you're suggested that you can ask.
Oh, okay then. Well, I can go ahead and ask this group of people more questions as well. Since we do have more questions, there's always questions to answer. Can you talk about one of the most challenging experience that you have had in the profession of social work so far, and how you dealt with that? And we'll start with Ms. Major.
Thank you, Dr. McFadden, for that question. I can recall as a social work professional being challenged working with other professionals that may not have the same ethical codes with regards to cultural sensitivity, and was in a position to advocate for a family that had strong values with regards to medical care for their loved one that was not in line with what the physicians believed was the correct mode of action. And I think this example of advocacy is important because although we talk about the importance of cultural competence, I think that cultural humility is something that I strongly advocate, that we are open to understanding the ideas, beliefs, values of others, to not assume that we know what's best, and to advocate for those who feel that their voices are being suppressed. And so in that case, I was able to advocate for this family and move our hospital forward in terms of becoming more sensitive around these issues, hoping that in the future, other families will not have to face this type of challenge because we have worked to educate other providers. And I think that as social workers, that's our goal, is to not only advocate, but also educate so that the people that we are working with have an opportunity for a fair and just society. Thank you.
Okay. Let me ask a related question then. You mentioned the area of cultural humility, but then you described cultural competence in the way you handle that situation. So say a little bit more about the connection between those two.
Well, for this family, the humility part was to sit down with the family and understand what are their concerns, what are their beliefs, what are the challenges that they have with regards to the medical interventions that were being discussed. And then as I understood, which is the humility part, not assuming that I knew, but to sit down and talk with them and give them the respect to be able to share their perspective. And then once I understood that, to go to the hospital and advocate that this family be heard and that their perspectives be honored.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Baby, same question. Difficult challenge. You alluded to some of them, in your, platform statement, but a particular incident that challenged you as a professional social worker, and how you managed to deal with that.
Well, I would say, I think instead of focusing on really in a particular, I guess the particular incident for me happens on a regular basis due to the nature of work, the work I do on a day-to-day basis. I work, a majority of the program I oversee are in the Department of Correction settings. So the Department of Correction is a system designed to manage inmates, manage our clients. But all our programs are located there to provide care. So their role is to provide or to manage these inmates. Our role is to provide care. So these roles are going parallel. So often there is a significant conflict between these two roles, just a lack of understanding why we're there in these settings, or if there is some level of understanding, often it's a very rigid, strong system. So my challenge, or all our programs' challenge, is really to be able to understand where the correction system is coming from, and to be able to be nimble and flexible and still continue to provide good care for our clients. This is an ongoing challenge, and now I continue to work with all my colleagues to understand that, they are coming from a very different lens, and our role is, to be able to understand where they're coming from and still focus on providing good quality care for our patients. Otherwise, if we don't do it, who's going to do it? Social workers are called to provide this good care for the most marginalized population of our society. The inmates are coming with history of trauma, history of substance use disorder, significant mental health history, and so forth. And social workers are well equipped to deal with these issues, and I take that as a day-to-day challenge.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I am so thrilled to ask this next question of Ms. Kiswani. I love students. Kiswani, you mentioned, first-generation students. I work at Morgan State University, which is a historically Black college and university, and we know that history, in terms of why these institutions come into being, because Black people were not able to attend college and universities in predominantly white institutions for a very, very long time. And so, the students, who are first generation students, minority serving institutions and HBCUs, have considerable struggles, around resources. Being a first generation student is certainly challenging. Your entire family and community is looking for you to succeed. So tell me, share with us, some of your experiences as being a first generation college student. Some of the challenges, some of the successes so far. Have you been in your field placement yet?
Yes, I actually have.
Oh yeah, please talk about that as well.
Awesome. So I just want to start off by saying some of the challenges that I have experienced as a first generation college student is really the lack of resources. And honestly, with my professors helping me and supporting me, it has been amazing. And that representation and advocacy that they have put towards me, I want to put towards other students. So being a student is hard enough, and not knowing where to start and what to do is even harder. But I know the NASW has helped me so much with understanding the code of ethics and the cultural competencies and applying them to my current internship at Newer Community Solutions. Mm-hmm. Some of the challenges that I have faced were how to interact with clients at first. It is very frightening, but it is an amazing experience once you've helped the individual overcome any issues that they may face, mm-hmm. and you grant them the access to resources that they desperately need. And that's what we need with student members within the NASW. Mm-hmm. So I feel like I would want to represent the BSW students and undergraduate students and make sure that their voices are heard in undergraduate, in decision making.
Okay. Yes. Well, thank you very much. Since we ended up with a little bit of time, I'll just ask you a question that I'm very interested in hearing people speak on. I heard a statistic the other day that more people die from suicide than from gun violence. I didn't know that, and it was shocking. So as social workers, what are your thoughts about that?
I can say something about that.
Sure.
I mean, I think as social workers, we need to continue to educate and announce that, for example, there is the creation of 988 hotline number nationwide, and mm-hmm. people need to learn on how to utilize that resource. And different programs need to advocate and educate people about how to use that services. And we need to also work really hard to work around, the stigma of mental illness, and so that people can openly talk about their struggles to their family members, friends, and all their natural supports around their communities.
So what do we as social workers need to do to address what is obviously a mental health crisis in this nation?
Well, can I speak to that?
Sure, go ahead, please.
Sure, please.
Well, I agree with Mr. Bisrat in the fact that there is a huge stigma in our society. I think that in Black and Brown communities, there's a high belief that our sense of who we are is based on our strength to be able to be resilient and to endure. And so if we say that we're depressed or that we're going through some type of emotional challenges, that's seen as a weakness. And to try to impact that stigma is really huge. I think that it starts within our community, but also in our churches, where there's a belief that if you have faith, then that's all you need, and that you shouldn't have a mental health issue if you have enough faith in God. I think that's something that we can speak to in our communities to help eradicate that belief system. I think just exposing people to the idea that going to the doctor is something that we're willing to do because we take care of our bodies, and that taking care of our mental health is a part of our bodies, and that we should continue to do that as well.
Okay. So we have a lot of work to do, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Yes. And I think that because social workers provide the majority of the mental health therapy and clinical practice, we certainly need to be growing the number of social workers who are, culturally trained and prepared and competent to address the issues. Because as we all know, many of the issues, affect underserved populations, Blacks, Hispanics, Latinx people, LGBTQ people as well. And we absolutely have to be preparing our students to address those issues. So thank you very much. It's been wonderful having the time to have this discussion. I was really frightened that we only had such a short time, but you know how we social workers can go. We could go for about another hour if we had it. But I think that it's time for us to close. It's been a pleasure
Thank you so much.
And best wishes for becoming members of the board of directors for NASW. And
thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Good to meet you, Hannah and Dr. Major.
Thank
It's
you.
nice to meet everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Absolutely. We now have the next group of candidates to join. And so Greg and Lakia, we can start now. Hello.
Hello.
Good to see you. Is it just the two of you in this group?
I think it's Deborah and I think.
Well, Deborah, I introduced Deborah before, and she's not in this group. So it's Yvette who's there. Karen, where's Karen McLean? Oh, okay, they're going to be starting. There's Karen. Are going to be starting, and Chantel Fisher, and
There's Deborah.
Oh, there's Deborah Johnson. Yes, and the last one is Natasha joining us as well? I think I'm going to start with Natasha because she has to leave us. a little bit earlier. And so if you all are okay with that, sort of going with her, then we will start with her introduction. Hello, Natasha, unmute yourself. Natasha is the candidate for the board for Region 13, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for
Okay.
having me.
Okay, please introduce yourself and say something about your platform statement.
Wonderful. So good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you're watching. I'm Natasha Paddock. I'm a professional social worker of 13 years, serving in NASW leadership since 2011. I'm a longtime servant of the public sector. I currently work in executive leadership for county government and the nonprofit sector for the last 20 years. I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, which deepens my commitment to social justice and social action off the clock. My career has spanned the range of policy advocacy and community organization. I'm currently the deputy director for a local housing and community development agency in one of the largest Bay Area counties in California. I work with state and local partners to resolve the homelessness crisis. Representation and holding space for my fellow social workers to have a voice and make a tangible impact is what I bring to the table. And again, I'm honored to be nominated, and it's a pleasure to be here with all of you.
Okay. Thank you very much. It's wonderful meeting you as well. I'll go with now Yvette Tyndale, who is in Region 2 as a candidate. Ms. Tyndale, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Yvette Tyndale. I'm a clinical social worker. I'm based out of Connecticut. I have years of experience, approximately 10 years of experience working with children, adults, and older adults in the area of mental health and substance use. So mostly providing psychotherapy and case management services. I currently work as a senior social worker at the Department of Veteran Affairs, where I provide community-based services to veterans with serious mental illness. I'm grateful for the opportunity to serve as, to be a candidate for the Region 2 Director position. Early in my social work career, I recognized the value and the importance in participating in NASW and am grateful for all the opportunities that it has and continues to afford me in my social work career. I look forward to continuing to demonstrate my commitment to the clients we serve, with colleagues with whom I serve or whom we serve, and also the overall social work profession. Thank you all for having me.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to go with Karen McLean before I then ask the questions. And so, Karen, please introduce yourself. Karen is a candidate for Region 2 Director. Welcome.
Hello, everybody. I'm so glad to be here on this platform this evening. My name is Karen McLean, and I am currently the department chair and associate professor of social work at Western Connecticut State University in Connecticut, one of the 4 regional colleges within the state of Connecticut. I've served in the profession for, I'm going to date myself, almost 30 years. And I've been in a number of host settings, from hospitals to clinics to courthouses. And I've worked in social welfare for a number of years, working with people and advocating for them to get the help and the services that they need, as well as to delve deep into policy and to help advocate for policy change. What do I bring to the organization and to the potential members that I'll serve? I'm going to play with numbers because I'm a numbers person. So I bring 6 years of service on my local board of directors for the state of Connecticut. I bring 34 years of commitment to the profession and my various roles in the profession. And I bring 40 years of hard work in anything that I do. I try to give of myself and dedicate myself to advocate for those that are in need and to raise the voices in our profession. And that adds up to my 50 plus years of experience that I may not share with you all this evening. However, I'm so grateful to be here to serve. I also serve as a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, which enhances my desire and my drive and my willingness to help those that are in need. And again, I thank you so much for the opportunity to be on this platform and to share with you all.
Okay. Very good. Thank you very much. I'm watching the clock, and so I'm going to pose my question to Natasha to try to honor her time. She has another commitment and won't be able to stay on. But immediately following Natasha, we're being preempted by the one and only president of NASW. That's Miss Mitt Joyner, because she has a question, and she gets to preempt all of us. And I'm sure it's a provocative one. So maybe we'll get to you very, very shortly. So, Natasha, I asked a question earlier. What do you think are the most pressing challenges for the profession of social work? And how do you see the work that you do relating to those challenges?
I think deepening the connection of professional social workers as well as students coming out of the social work programs is really the challenge that I think most states endure. I know firsthand in the state of California that has been a challenge, just A, increasing membership, B, holding membership, being able to maintain numbers. And a lot of the feedback that I've received from professional social workers and students who are just exiting their programs is there's a lack of networking and resources. And so really revitalizing various regions. California is a very large state. And so within our local chapter, I know that making those connections is really vital to keep folks not only connected to the work, but to really inspire them for going out and committing to what they signed up for, which is making a lasting impact. A couple of ways to go about that is specifically in the state of California, we've embarked on programs like Coffee and Connections. There have been other programs like the New Professionals Network. And so really just reinvigorating those types of mentorship opportunities for folks to get the resources to have the support that they need to further not just their continuing education, but their education hands-on in what it actually means to deliver dynamic services as a social work professional. And so that's definitely something that I look to inspire and to help to revitalize in Region 13. And one last point that I'll just make about that, as a former Regency director, which covers 4 large Bay Area counties in California, that was a challenge over 10 years ago. And so there is an obvious disconnect that I think, really diving in and hearing from the membership and understanding what their needs are, because those needs cycle over. What was needed 10 years ago is not the same thing that's needed today. And so really just giving folks a platform to elevate their voices about what they need for support to help them continue the work that they do, the very critical and important work that they do in this profession.
Okay. Thank you very much. Well, I'm getting messages in the chat that I need to go ahead and introduce a couple of more people. So I hope that we were able to address your time constraint. And thank you very much, Ms. Paddock. So now we have Deborah Johnson from Region 10, who can introduce herself. Hi, Ms. Johnson. It's good to see you.
It's nice to be here. I'm actually coming from Poland. I'm in Katowice, Poland, this minute. It is 1:30 in the morning.
Oh my God! We're so sorry.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I'm over visiting a friend, and I focus in, one of the things that I do is focus on disaster mental health. I come from Oklahoma. We have a lot of disasters there. So that's one of the areas that I've volunteered in. But I'm over here also looking at how social workers can help in the Ukrainian refugee situation. So anyway, that's where I'm at right this minute. But I am running for the Region 10. I've served in a number of positions for the last 6 years. for our board in Oklahoma. And so I've served from, a graduate representative all the way up to president, and I've served as the chair of the Council of Presidents for presidents across the country, from a national perspective. And that's really given me a perspective on issues that we face as an organization, and it's allowed me to build relationships throughout the country that I think can be useful in working with the larger board for the national board. I'm a listener, and so I have really enjoyed listening to people across the country, understanding their issues, trying to bring those forward, like I did in the president position for the Council of Chapter Presidents. But I think that, going forward, connecting people becomes a really important issue to me that I want to bring forward in Region 10. In some of our smaller chapters where we can build some of that synergy to create processes that can help the smaller chapters, because some of the larger chapters, have their own issues, but our smaller chapters have particular issues where we can grow and develop ways to build regional kinds of conferences or the online conferences that we've done. So those are some of the things that are kind of important to me. And yes, I'm excited to be here.
I think I'm gonna make the decision to ask you a question, because I can't imagine you're awake at 1:30 in the morning. And so, being the great social worker that I am, I'm having a little empathy here.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. So, can you talk about what's going on in the Midwest, in Oklahoma? What are people facing there these days?
In Oklahoma, our social workers right now are facing barriers to the entry of the profession of social work. We have pretty high costs in Oklahoma as far as entering into the profession. We know at this point now, we know from the ASWB announcement that there are issues with the test and we're trying in Oklahoma to address the board. That one of the things that is kind of unique about Oklahoma is, as the president of NASW, I also served on the board of social work, and that gives also kind of a different perspective. Being that regulator, having that regulator hat on, that as looking at that issue coming forward of the cost and those barriers. And we also have an issue right now going on in Oklahoma where our legislature has made it a mandatory requirement that all licensed healthcare professionals, which include us, all licensed healthcare professionals must pay a $5,000 fee in order to connect into that health information exchange. And so, getting perspective from others around the country as to how their health information exchanges are running has been helpful in trying to go back to the legislature and say, we should not be mandatorily required to participate in that health information exchange. We need to be, instead of mandatory, that can be something that we can choose to do, but a $5,000 fee starts to make it really, really difficult when you're talking about a small practices. So those are issues that are impacting us, and I think they're impacting other states too, which we can build some synergy around as we start to learn, how are these policies being implemented at the state level. So anyway, that's a big one right now is the cost and the entry and the barriers of entry for our social workers. So
absolutely, and you've just laid out in a very, very clear way why NASW is so important.
It is.
Right.
Exactly.
We have to address these issues as a whole, organization of social workers, because that a lot of things that are going on in this country are just criminal, and we have to be at the table addressing those issues. So thank you very, very much. I think that we can say good night. If you'd like to, if you'd like to hang on, as long as you can. So we're gonna move into having Chantel Fisher introduce herself. Hello there again. It's good to see you.
Hi, likewise. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here tonight as one of the candidates for the Region 10 Board of Directors candidate. So I am Chantel Fisher. I'm the founder and CEO of the Soul Fisher Ministries, and we're a nonprofit in St. Louis, Missouri, with a mission to respond to the needs of youth with incarcerated parents and to promote restorative justice for those currently or formerly incarcerated. And so the work that we do involves providing after-school tutoring and enrichment in one of our under-resourced districts here in St. Louis. So currently it's unaccredited, and that's the Riverview Garden School District. And then we also work in partnership with the Missouri Department of Corrections to start working with people while they're in prison, providing pre-release programs and services, so financial literacy classes that help them identify their purpose, and then also substance use classes while they're still in prison. Then we transition with them back into the community, where we provide them with supportive housing and a host of wraparound services that try to remove every barrier to them being successful in their transition back into the community. And I'm often asked, like, how did I come about the mission, or, how did I settle on this mission? And it's simple, because of my own involvement with the criminal justice system. So I became a mom at a really young age. I was only 15 years old. By the time I was 17, I found myself sitting in a jail cell for doing something that I didn't even know was a crime. And as many of us know, once you make contact with the criminal justice system, it has historically become almost next to impossible to kind of break free from the criminal justice system. And so this is why I became involved in the work that I do. So when I transitioned back into the community, the last time I went back to school, got, my associate degree, onto my bachelor degree, and onto my MSW and LCSW licensure as well. And that was because I didn't want to be known for just having the lived experience, but I wanted to also be known as a resource, a wealth of knowledge, and someone that had the academic rigor and backing and standing to know, what works with these populations versus what doesn't work with these populations from an evidence-based perspective. Because I see a lot of things that happen within, people who are impacted by the criminal justice system that are just, frankly, unethical. And so I wanted to be a part of making a difference within these two populations that we serve, because I believe that everyone has a right to be able to participate equitably in society, and that it is our responsibility as a community, as a society, to make sure that that can actually be a reality for everyone. Research shows that 97% of people who go to prison come home, and it's up to us to decide how we want them to return to our communities. Do we want them to return the same way they went in, or do we want them to return to our communities in ways that they can grow and develop and be contributing members to the same communities that they once took from? Much like myself, and I didn't get where I am, because I was a Lone Ranger. It was because the people in my community rallied around me, asked what I needed to be successful, and then that's what they provided for me. So that's the reason that I'm running. I'm currently an alternate on the specialty practice committee, and I absolutely love being involved with the NASW. I've been a member since I was in graduate, so I didn't do a BSW. I went into the MSW program, but I joined right away because I knew early on that I wanted to be a voice for those who were coming behind me, to make sure that they had access to the resources that they too would need in order to be successful in their transition back into the community. And on the other end of the spectrum, to make sure that our babies never have to take that same path and make impact with the criminal justice system.
Wow. Thank you so very, very much. That's what we call in my community a test and a testimony.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. And so thank you very, very much for sharing that. I'm getting instructions to put up Mitt's question. Are we going to do that now? Greg, Aaliyah? Or should I go ahead and introduce our last candidate? Oh, here it is, right here.
I saw that question. I was watching the earlier one.
Oh, how will you help as an NASW board member take the risk and action in these tumultuous times? Please provide an example. And I was going to ask a similar question. We are indeed in tumultuous times. When we have a portion of our community trying to whitewash people's contributions to the building and to the sustainment of this nation, by removing books, from libraries, by removing, women's rights to make decisions about their own reproductive health care. There are some things that are going on right now that are quite unbelievable. Gerrymandering to keep people from voting, and all of those kind of things. And I think the work that we do, Mitt, I'm answering part of the question, couldn't be more consequential than it is right now. And I know that all of you share that view. But please, any one of you want to respond to Ms. Joyner's question?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, please.
One of the things that I was thinking about, and I think that this question is a great catalyst to that, is there has to be a pathway by which we connect micro-social work to a logical trajectory of macro-social work. Having served in executive leadership, there's only a select few of minorities, women, as well as social workers that are at the tables making decisions around policy. The predominance of our profession is serving in direct practice, and that is wonderful. However, we need that to translate into the spaces where decisions are made, where decisions are cultivated, where action is taken. And, one of the things, kind of going back to the question that I responded to earlier, that is that pathway, right? We do really have to wrap our arms around the students that are coming out of the programs and connect them with the professionals who have been out in the field doing the work, and cultivating, that type of pathway where folks are able to take their experiences and translate them into the language that's heard at the seats at these tables, so that we can start to see impact in a very meaningful way. And, I'm really inspired, by what you said, Ms. Fisher. And I think that is one of the things that I've seen recently. I do a lot of work right now with HUD around the homelessness crisis. And one of the things that has been elevated is the voices of people with lived experience, because that's an impact like none other, right? It doesn't matter how many books you read and what, fancy words you can string together in a sentence. What are we doing to actually make an impact in people's lives in a very meaningful and productive way? And so, I think being able to connect those two aspects is really something that we have to start looking more deeply into with our schools of social work, and even the way that we start to shape people's career trajectories, how we're hiring people, how we're bringing them on, how we're cultivating them, and making sure that we're making some of those connections to reach our ultimate goals.
Yeah, I love your answer to that question, because we know that most of our social workers really, really want to do micro work. They want to be clinicians. They want to do counseling and those kind of things. But we have to go back to a time, and there was a time, and I'm old enough to remember that time, when those things were intimately weaved together. Yeah. Right? I don't know if anybody else remember that way. Intimately weaved together. And so those macro issues, those policy issues, those social justice issues, those community-based issues, and all of those things are intimately connected. And we don't want to continue to ignore that connection in our profession. So I love the points that you made, Natasha, related to that. And somebody else was trying to
I
get
was
in.
going to say, I said to add to that, I think, the pandemic really kind of catapulted social workers to the front line, right? And
Sure.
we're in this era now where we have opportunities like we've never seen before. Because what space can you think of or name today that doesn't need a social worker, right? So now is the time that social workers are being asked, like, what do we need to do to accomplish this? What can we do to help this population? What can we do to help this population? The last thing that we as social workers want to do is shrink back. Now is the time that we really have to forge forward down the path that has kind of been laid out before us to say, hey, these are the changes that need to be made, and this is how we begin to make those changes happen.
Right. And we have to work very, very hard to remind everyone that we are first responders too.
Yes, exactly. And everybody
first responders,
right now.
Just like nurses and emergency people, and we're right there. We're in those emergency rooms, and responding to the crises that our children are experiences in mass shootings. We're right there, trying to help people through that horrendous process. So anybody else dying to respond?
Yes,
to
if I could jump off
really the lady who's still up at 2 o'clock in the morning. Go ahead, Deborah.
Social worker.
Go ahead, Deborah.
Go ahead, Karen. Karen started. Go ahead.
I appreciate it because I have to jump off and do
you
just
gotta
that
jump off. Okay,
with students. So I believe in mobilization, specifically with our folks, and that includes our social workers as well. To piggyback off of what Natasha said, really getting involved in policy change and policy advocacy, because for a lot of people, it's very intimidating going down to the grassroots level in terms of getting involved in voting, holding your legislators accountable, being able to even take the steps to email a legislator, to call or to write, the basics that sometimes we've taken for granted. And again, that includes social workers, because more of us actually need to be at that forefront doing that work and making those calls and getting people out so that they understand that their voices are heard and their voices matter, and that they have to hold the legislative folks that we put in office accountable to help make the change, but not solely rely on them as social workers kind of on the ground as well. Continue to work that advocacy work in the streets. As you mentioned several points about what's happening in the streets, the mass shootings, and all of this DEI movement and the anti-LGBTQIA plus legislation that's being promulgated. We really have to, as social workers, begin to work with our clients and our constituencies to get them out and to get them heard so that we can effectively make change. And I thank you all for this opportunity again this evening. I got to jump off to do the exact same thing with students. So thank you all.
Okay, it was wonderful meeting you, and thank you for contributing to the discussion.
Okay, thank you.
I know that Yvette hasn't said anything, and I know that Deborah is just still trying to stay awake. So Yvette, if you could comment quickly on anything that you wish to comment on, that would be great.
Wow, there were so many things.
I know that's the thing about social work, isn't it? We're everywhere and about everything human.
Yes, and that's the beauty of it, because it's a very unique profession where we can do just that, right? We can be a little bit of everywhere, and I to me that's what makes the profession so beautiful, and what also makes it so interesting, right? So there's always learning and growing on either side. One of the things that I wanted to mention is that, for one, I'm chair of the NASW Connecticut Ethics Committee, and you all were talking about this difference between micro and macro, and more of this divide. And that actually came up a couple months ago in one of our ethics committee meetings. And what we really decided on was, like, social work is social work, right? It's one profession. And so unity is something that's coming up for me. Uniting. We've talked about mobilization, kind of uniting, having a seat at the table. There's strength in numbers. And I think that's really what makes NASW so strong, right? It's this chapter work. Then obviously there's national, this collaboration between the chapters and national. It makes it beautiful. It makes us stronger. It makes us continue to learn from each other, and also continue to reach out and learn where we need to learn. We can utilize the strengths that we have and also be able to identify areas that we can grow in. So those are just some of the things that are coming up for me. I know that we're pressed for time, so I'll allow us to continue with some of the other candidates.
Yeah, we have a lot to share. We have a lot to talk about. We have a sense of what's happening with people, and that's really, really important. So Ms. Deborah, please go ahead before I introduce our last candidate.
Okay. What I was going to say, and it follows up along with what Natasha was talking about, I'm looking forward to us taking a real strategic approach to our kind of career pathing for social workers. So my previous life was an industrial organizational psychologist, and I did a lot of HR work within the organization where we were looking at succession planning and development of people. And if we can take a real strategic look at how we develop social workers and what are the different avenues, and start to do some development planning so that we can kind of build that bench strength where we can, in our states, make sure that we have created a bench so that we can put people on statewide committees, get them into to running for legislative positions, city council, our county governments. We need to have social workers throughout various kinds of leadership positions in our state,
Yes.
as well as in our country. And I think that we can start to help social workers understand how they can develop, what kinds of positions that they can take to move into that next position. Even as we look at the various kinds of positions that there are available now, there are even more positions available for social workers, in our government, and in our NGOs and other organizations. It's just the sky's the limit. It's very exciting to be a social worker. I'm very excited for us. We've got lots of good things going on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you all so much. Let me introduce, last but certainly not least, she couldn't be with us this evening, Rosemary Alamo. She is a candidate in Region 13. She has a PhD in MSW and an LCSW, and is an associate professor at University of Southern California School of Social Work. She is a doctor of behavioral health degree from Arizona State University and a master's from the Peck School of Social Work at USC. She's been an active member of NASW for the past 23 years. She's also a member of the Council on Social Work Education. She's a former director for NASW California Region 1 and serves as a co-advisor for the University of California NASW unit. She's also been a social work practitioner, educator, and leader for more than 25 years. That's the one thing I like about social workers. We just keep on working. There's no such thing as real retirement. She indicates in a platform statement that she has been a longstanding member of NASW California. She's had the pleasure of serving as interim Region 1 director, and currently as a member of Region 1 steering committee, and believes that her professional and leadership experience provides her with the knowledge, skills, and abilities that are needed to successfully serve in Region 13 on the board of directors. And so, hello, Dr. Alamo, and we wish that you have been here. So I think that we've come to the end of this opportunity to introduce the candidates that the National Committee on Nomination and Leadership Identification. We worked very hard to develop a slate of candidates that were representative across the board in all kinds of areas, and that certainly we believe that any one of the candidates who have appeared here today would do a fantastic job in serving on the board. And so I want to say what a wonderful experience this was. I think that this is a wonderful and very innovative opportunity to have people meet each other across the country. And I'd like to even suggest to the CEO, who's my graduate PhD from Morgan State University, Dr. Anthony Estreet, that you consider having more of these opportunities where we get together virtually and have these very, very important and serious discussions from a number of different perspectives. You know, hearing what's going on in Oklahoma and California and all of the other places, you know, that we may not, you know, get as much information on. So thank you all very, very, very much. It's been my pleasure to be your moderator, to meet you, and to engage other social workers. I love social workers, and they're everywhere. I tell people on my campus that all the time. They look at me crazy, but I promise them that it's true. So good night, and you all take care and be safe.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Everyone have a great evening. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.